Mike, we are live.
Yeah, I see that.
Good afternoon, Mike. This is G-Force. Before we get in today, I'm going to do a little rollout here, and then we'll get into the introductions and stuff. Are you good with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let's try this. This is
Let's experiment.
that's it. We'll talk about what this is all about. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I just
I
created
need to
that.
get one of those fancy videos.
Well, I can definitely give you the link to do it. It's a free software program, allows you to create different short little videos, and it takes about 5 minutes, from the time you put your content in and go from there. So I didn't have one to put on this platform, so I just created just before you came on. So I didn't even have a chance to review it. So I don't know if I spelled the words correct. So, Mike, I would just like to take a moment here and welcome you, Mike Van Pelt. What I love about live streaming is the opportunity to meet some wonderful people, connecting, building relationships, supporting our missions, our causes, our businesses. I've been streaming now for almost 3 years, and I've got 3 programs. On Fridays, I do this G-Force. G is for gratitude. I do another one on Monday evenings called Elevate Your Profits with my business partner, Mark Gassert. And then I do another one in and around health because my wife and I have a wellness center, and we market a product and a adjunct therapy from ASEA. That's our logo there for that. So I love this platform, getting your message out, building relationships. But today is G-Force and gratitude. So Mike Van Pelt, I'll let you share a little bit about how we connected, but what are you grateful for today?
Oh, listen, I'm grateful. Like you, I'm grateful for platforms like this. I tell you, when somebody asked me, Mike, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And I went, that's a funny question, because it was a joke in our men's small group. We were all like, hey, that would have made a great podcast. It really was a joke. And we kicked it around a little bit. And I had somebody encourage me, Mike, you really need to check out podcasting. And I thought, okay, I'll check into it. And so here's the funny story. I am going to answer your question because it relates back to how this whole thing started. So I checked into it and I thought, wow, this might be a really fun way to market myself. But man, I'm scared to death. I'm kind of introverted. I don't like putting my stuff out there for everybody to hear. But I'm like, there's something about this that's really intriguing me. So true story, I wasn't sure that I would do it. So I purchased the equipment, had it show up at my house. And, I went, I'm not technical. And I mean, man, when something technical comes at me, the fear of God shows up. And so I took the stuff down in my basement. I set it up and I was proud as heck. It even worked. And my family comes downstairs and they looked at my little Rode podcasting board and they went, you're going to figure this out? And I went, well, we're going to figure this out. And so the podcast began with myself and Paul Bailey, my partner. And truth be told, it took a couple of adult beverages for us to flip the switch and actually start talking. But man, I've never looked back. And in fact, yesterday I was just finishing up the 96th recording of a podcast. And what has happened as a result of that is, like you, I've met some incredible people. It has become somewhat of a networking tool, somewhat of a relationship building tool. It has led to other business partnerships. And probably the most important thing, and this was completely unexpected, was I really found my confidence and calling by doing this. Just really unexpected. I had gone through some business challenges and I wasn't sure, what life had in store for me anymore. And by sitting behind this little microphone and talking with people and learning from people, I found it. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. So that's a little bit of this story there. Why I even started the podcast, and really how it's helped me blossom and build relationships. It's incredible.
Yeah. That's one of the things that, I'll just share I'm grateful for. This whole platform, myself being a personal development coach, um, being thankful, being appreciative are very powerful, I believe, spiritual principles, but the strongest of them all is gratitude. And in my coaching, it was brought up, but it wasn't really a real focal point. And so a client of mine, I have to always give credit where credit's due, says, Tom, have you read Robert A. Emmons' book, Gratitude Works? I says, no, I got a lot of books of self-development,
Yeah.
hundreds actually. My library here is here in the back. My wife's office got hundreds of books, all about spiritual and personal growth.
Yeah.
There's no novels or anything like that in our library. But
Yep.
anyway, I started reading this book and I recognized, gee, I'm deficient in this area of gratitude at a sincere, deep level, really understanding the power of gratitude. So I started reading this. This is before I started podcasting or doing live stream. So I was introduced. I always like to give credit due is Ken Walls through Mark Gasser to introduce me to the same thing. You got to be streaming. You got to have a podcast. You're in business. You're not going to be keeping up with the big boys, and you can look like a big boy and all the different things that streaming does. And I was a little intimidated. Now I've done public speaking. Putting me in front of a crowd, stand up in front of an audience. I've done that for years. But suddenly to put a camera in front of me in the beginning was one of the most terrifying, nerve-wracking things. Yeah. Where do I look? What do I look like? Because now you see in yourself at the same time you're talking.
Yep.
All the insecurities and all the self-doubt talking. He says, this is crazy. You can't do it. You look funny with a beard on, whatever the things that come across are thinking, right? But it's been the best thing. You mentioned something at the end of your comment is it causes you to grow.
Oh, yes.
Unbelievable to be able to put yourself out to the world in an authentic way with your mission, your purpose, and your why. And it causes you to, I always believe if you're going to coach somebody you got to do the work first.
Yeah.
Before you guide somebody along. So this has caused me to do the work. If I'm going to talk about principles of personal development, growth, and those type of things, I've got to do the work first because I can't, in coaching, I can get a person to where I'm at. That's my mission. I've got a story behind that. And so I can get people where I'm at, and hopefully that as I grow, I bring you with me. But if I can't meet your needs in that growth process, hey, I'm going to turn you over to somebody like a Mike Van Pelt, somebody that can take them to a different level. So, So this whole platform started around my coaching, around the principle. I'm going to give credit to the book, who introduced it to me. Terrell Hunt, former quarterback for Syracuse, was slated to be a #1 draft choice. First quarter in his senior year, he ruptured his Achilles tendon. He was selected to probably be a #1 draft choice. Guess what happened? It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And all the people around him left him because, unfortunately, so that's how I made it. He's a great young man and a kid, but he's the one that recommended that I read this book. And I did, and I thank him. I thank, the author for that, because it really causes a person to dive deep of what are you grateful for, more on a deeper level. There's science behind it, there's spirituality behind it, and all these things. And it does work. When I really studied it, everything changed there. It eliminates negativity.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's sort of the story would cause this program to come about. But Mike, share a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? A little history about maybe your family, if you like to share that.
Yeah.
Your business path, where you are today, how we've connected, whatever. And we'll just sort of talk like we're sitting over and having a beer or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it we should have done it at happy hour then, um, I grew up in central Iowa. I grew up in a little town in central Iowa, and it was, it was a big town, actually. I mean, about 13,000 people. That's a decent sized town in central Iowa. And, I wasn't a farm kid, but I'd go out and work on the farm during the summer. I was always involved in athletics. And that's where I began to, as I see it now, I can fully appreciate why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I always looked at teachers and coaches, especially from, my athletic background. There was never a plan B for me. I always thought that I was going to be a coach, preferably at the college level. And although I was not academically prepared, I could have cared less. I mean, I was just like sports. There was nothing. I could quote crazy statistics from, but so that was my thing. And I went to a junior college and was a manager on the basketball team, actually. And because I wanted to understand the game better. And that particular coach, he didn't know a lot of people, but that's where this whole networking thing really probably clicked in for me. I started making some phone calls. Next thing you know, I land down at the University of Arkansas in the early 90s, which was back when Nolan Richardson was there, and they were really a top 5 basketball team. And I spent some time there, and it was an amazing time to be there, because I was around a college athletic program that was, very highly ranked. Was actually a part of a game that back in the day we played UNLV, and it was number 1 against number 2, and I believe that game was on Super Bowl Sunday back then. So I've been in some high profile college basketball games. I didn't end up graduating from there. I was really finding myself a little lost. I thought I wanted to coach, but I really needed some guidance, and I wasn't getting it. And I went back to home to Iowa, and it wasn't too long after that where I eventually met my wife, Jill, and we got married, and boom, the next thing you know, we're down in Texas. We're like, we don't want to live in Iowa. We landed down in Texas. And that's really where my professional adventures began. I really began to get into the sales arena and in telecommunications, and spent some time in the insurance industry. And then after 9 years in Texas, in Houston, Texas, which is just a world-class city, by the way, we landed in South Carolina. My wife is an incredible human resource executive, and so I just follow her wherever she goes. But it was interesting because moving back to a smaller area, I really I was having some success in my professional career, but when we moved, I had to try to transition that. And what I was hoping for was that I would find somebody that in the insurance industry that was, maybe thinking about fading out, that would mentor me. And I never found that. And I really began to not like what I was doing. And, my wife said, well, Mike, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I really don't know. And I hired a career counselor. I ultimately ended up becoming a stay-at-home dad during that period. And I went back to college and completed my college degree, because I found myself saying to my children, guys, school's important, but I felt like a hypocrite. And so I went back, got my undergraduate degree, tried to go back out in the job force, and I was met with a lot of no's. And but I had been doing a ton of volunteer work, loved the nonprofit industry, loved nonprofits. And I thought, well, maybe that's my calling. I'm doing a lot with them. I could see myself as an executive director. What do executive directors have that I don't have ultimately? And I thought, well, I need to go get my master's degree. So I got a master's in public administration. And then I went back out in the job force, and it was crickets, man. They're like, we don't know what to do with you. And what happened was I began to internalize it. Like, I'm not worthy. I'm not being the man I should be. I need to be supporting my family, even though my wife had a good job, all those things. Am I even a good father? Is this the best life has for me? And what's interesting was I decided, I'm going to transition this and I'm going to do my own thing because I got the knowledge and skills and abilities to do this. I can do it. And I tried doing a little business consulting, and that's when I met, and I talked about this initially, Paul Bailey, who we ultimately ended up starting the podcast with. But we decided that we were going to start our own networking group. And what's interesting about that was no sooner did we start that than it morphed into a men's small group, because Paul and I really had a similar faith background, and we began to connect with other people and other organizations. And I went to a men's retreat. Never been to a men's retreat before in my life. Went to a men's retreat and it was on a Saturday morning. And the director of the camp said, we're going to play 3 worship songs this morning. I want you to view these as God singing them to you. And they played a song by Josh Groban called You Are Loved. And it changed my life. Because in that moment, I realized, even though I'd been a Christian all my life, that God wanted a very intimate relationship with me. And I wanted that same thing. I'd been looking for it. And that's when this whole idea began to surface of, really what you need to be doing is you need to get into men's coaching. And I was trying to figure that all out. That was in the spring of 2019. And I had all these lovely ideas about how 2020 was going to turn out. And then, like everybody else, the world shut down due to COVID. And that was one aspect of it. And then the second aspect came in June of that year when my wife was let go from her organization after 14 years. And we quickly realized our life was about to change things, because we knew we weren't going to be able to stay. And we landed here I'm in Atlanta, Georgia now. She took a position. And the beauty of that is all that knowledge, all that skills, all that abilities, everything I've been thinking about transpired to the point where, hey, I'm going to start True Man Life Coaching. We're going to start the True Man podcast, and, we're going to impact the lives of men for good. And so we've been here for about 1.5 years now, right around 1.5 years, a little over. And this has been, my full-time gig to really help men be better men, better dads, better husbands by, as you're talking about, when you were talking about some of the books and that type of thing, by helping men just pause and look inside themselves and reflect, because I'm a big believer, because I've gone through this, and I just 100% feel like this is true. You have all the answers inside of you, just sometimes.
Did we lose you? There was a hesitation. You still there, Mike?
I'm here.
Okay. There's a little hesitation. I don't know if it was on my side with my internet connectivity or whatever, but yeah. So, can I make a comment? 2 comments, if I may?
Yeah, absolutely.
Telling your kids that education is important. I learned this from a good friend of mine here, and he's a superintendent of schools in our Oconomowoc school district, and he says children don't do what they hear; they do what they see.
Yeah.
And so you demonstrate. So I think that's a powerful thing. Anybody that's out there is that don't do as I say, do as I do.
Servant
so
leadership.
That's how. Yeah. So that's a powerful thing. And then this transition, finding yourself, and it's a process. And I believe that's a spiritual thing that I believe in this principle: be still and know. Find that quiet place. The answers are in us.
Yeah.
Our direction is around us, but we can't find it. And that's where a lot of people are struggling today. Is there's so much chatter in the world, so much blitz, so much distractions. And I have to thank my wife. She's going on her 20th year, a silence and solitude retreat. She goes to a place that has a house on a lake.
Yeah.
Area, it's a 5-sided glass building, basically, for an individual to stay in. And she writes and reflects, and she's the best person that I know. She does it for 10 straight days. No cell phone,
Wow, 10
no
days.
outside
Ooh.
anything. She does the walks in the forest. She comes back, watches the sunrise, watches sunset. She journals, she writes, she gets connected. I'm a blessed man because she's in my life, but I'm even more blessed because every year I get a new woman in my life.
There
She's
you go.
brand new and you know, same person, but brand new. Yeah, so she's a great example of being still and know the answers come. And I just encourage people out there is that if you're frustrated, stuck, whatever, find that place that you can go.
Yeah.
Away from the noise, the TV, your cell phone, and God will give you the answers. They're
Well,
there.
yeah, and listen, the silent retreat, by the way, I've got so one of the organizations I'm a part of here in Atlanta, and it's a nationwide organization, is a Christian Businessmen's Connection. And we've got a great organization here in Atlanta. And so one of the things that we've got
Well, we have lost Mike, and I'm sure he'll jump back on. So, but what I like to do is just share with you is that being grateful is such a powerful principle. So, you know, Robert A. Emmons' book, Does Gratitude Work? Yes. And when you apply those principles, it's amazing. So I encourage anybody out there who's listening while we're waiting for Mike to jump back on, is, take time, be grateful for what you have right now. As human beings, if we live a fruitful, healthy life, we're projected to maybe live 75 years as an average, the average person. And Mike, I was just picking up talking about gratitude and being grateful for this moment that we're on this earth for maybe 27,365 days, if that's the best case scenario as an average, and be grateful for the moment, because this moment right now is the most important, most valuable time that you have. Even when you went down off the internet, you got to be grateful. We could have got all right.
What's funny about that was, I experienced this yesterday when I recorded a podcast. First of all, you never know what's going to happen. Now, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and stuff like that would have it would have rattled my cage 2 years ago. It would have absolutely rattled my cage. Here, I'm like, well, looks like we're going. It looks like we're going down. I don't know. I can't. You were frozen on the screen, and I'm like, and then rejoin popped up, and I'm like, well, there you go. We're good here. So,
yeah. And gratitude does it takes the edge off of what what causes you to respond versus react. And so yeah, technology, I love it's like having a car, love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just expounding on gratitude. So where were we when we lost?
So I was going to actually mention that about retreats. I don't know what you heard, but there's a silent retreat thing that I'm very tempted to go on one of these. Now, I will tell you this, and a lot of it's been my experience. One of the things I think we as men, and I'm going to say men because that's kind of the world that I deal with. It's people in general, but I mean, we sometimes as men, we don't take time to pause and reflect. We will not stop ourselves. We'll just keep plowing through everything, hoping that it'll find a way to work out. And one of the things that I have grown to love, now listen, full disclosure, if it was up to me, I'd go to the golf course. A day at the country club sounds pretty cool to me. That's outdoor activity. I'm not a woodsy guy other than, maybe a hike here or there. But, taking time for, at the very least, a weekend retreat a couple times a year, once a year. I'm at a point now where I'm thinking once a quarter, where I can reset and just pause and be around. Typically these retreats that I'm going to, there's, in the neighborhood of 200 to 400 guys there. And it's great to be around guys that are chasing the same thing, which is a life of more and freedom and just getting in touch with their heart and their faith. And there's something about those weekends that is a complete reset. And I strongly encourage it. And that is something that I'm working towards, in my coaching. How can I implement both small and larger retreats so that we can offer that to guys and help them reset where they're at? Because I tell you what, there is nothing like being around a group of men that know they want more in their life and, need the help of other men to help them get that there. And it's an inspiring weekend every time I go.
You're great mission men. We're both men here talking, and when you said that you wanted to help men, and I'm thinking, when you got yourself you got your arms around a bear right there.
Oh yeah.
Because men, number one, we're wired to go out and kill something, drag it home, and not worry about who's going to cook it, right? So we'll just go out and kill something, bring it back in. We're wired, right? That's how we're wired.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll kill it. We'll beat it up. We'll do whatever we can to get through this problem.
Yeah.
And that leads to the next thing, is that we're men, and I'm speaking for myself, is my ego was my biggest. There's two sides of ego. One is the creative, and the other side is the destructive. My ego was destructive, not just to people around me, but to myself, because I couldn't get out of my own way. It wasn't, my ego says, oh, I don't need to hear that stuff. I'm
right.
I can figure it out. I'll go out and kill it and drag it home.
Yep.
But taking that on, and that's a big obstacle. Now, ego is our armor. It also has a place to defend us and protect us. But there's two sides that are, one is destructive or creative. And so I had a client turn me on to some principles about ego. Says, you're kind of an egotistical guy.
I'm sure that felt great.
Oh yeah. And so, as I said, wait a minute, let me do, my wife was involved in my conversation as well. So thank God for her. She really, nurtured me through this process and got down that path. And I still struggle with it. She says, Tom, your ego's in the way right now. And, that old behavior, the old thought part, because I was programmed. I programmed myself to be that way. So, but anyway, dealing with men is a whole different challenge, because when you say to have more, we've been brought up in a culture, and we just wanted to share my thoughts, and we can expound on that. To have more, what we've been conditioned is
more.
I'm
talking about a different kind of more.
Yeah, the things, the cars, the boats, the more money, the more vacations.
Yeah, that's not the more I'm talking about.
Right. And so that's where men get hung up on is more connection with, I call, the laws of the universe, or God, whatever you want to put on it, higher power. And we struggle with that. I mean, people struggle. Men in particular struggle with more so than women, I believe. So.
Well, I love to tell this story. Again, my little Christian businessmen's group here in Atlanta, we took some young professionals out. They were on a retreat weekend, and I was observing when the guide took them through a little program. And so they blindfolded the guys that we were in the gymnasium. We blindfolded them, and we were going to take them out to this ropes course. And so the guide says, here's the rules. You got to keep your blindfold on. You got to keep your hand on the rope. Because you got to try to find your way out via the rope. Keep your hand on the rope. And if you need help, just raise your hand and ask for it. And so we marched them out to the ropes course, and the guide proceeds to say, well, here are the rules. Keep your blindfold on, keep your hand on the rope at all times. And if you need help, raise your hand and ask for help. So the guys proceed around, and every once in a while, the guide would give the rules again. And it was, I think about 10 minutes passed. And before we saw the first guy put his hand up in the air, and the guide went over and told him, what was going on. And, and then It took about 30 minutes to get everybody out. The whole idea was there was no way to get out of the ropes course other than to do one thing and one thing only, and that's put your hand in the air and ask for help. And a lot of men are afraid because of our egos, because of our masculinity that we've been, led to believe is a part of that, that asking for help is bad. That you will be less than if you ask for help. And that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, asking for help is an amazing thing. Asking for help is why you and I are even having this conversation today, Thomas, because, I've not been afraid as I've networked with people to say, I need help in this area. This is where I'm strong. This is where I'm weak. Can I get help here? How do you get to the next level? And so asking for help, is one of the biggest things you can do to enhance your life. And it's not something that men do well. And I often say to people, trying to find a man that'll ask for help, boy, that couldn't be anything. Usually somebody shows up at my doorstep, their arms hanging off their side and they're bleeding out their eyeballs before they decide to put their hand in the air and ask for help. And that's a challenge with men. And, I think that a better way to live is to be more grateful, more vulnerable, and not be afraid to ask for help, because you can get from good to great or great to greater, by having the joke always is, right? Even Tiger Woods has a golf coach. Well, he doesn't now, but I mean, he has had several golf coaches over the years. And we all need people from time to time to walk with us and help us, get to the next level or get beyond whatever the it is. Because we know that there's always going to be a next it that shows up in our lives. And even if things are going good for you right now, chances are the next it is coming. How prepared are you for it? How prepared are you? And, that's what I feel like I do. It's also my biggest challenge, right? I got to find guys that want help or are willing to admit they do.
That's the key. I think, we, as human beings, I think most people, whether it be man or woman or adult or child, children, not so much. Let's keep it on the adult level. Because children, when they're innocent and they're going to ask, right? But as culture conditions us and society conditions us or environment conditions us, then we get squashed into that box.
Yeah.
But I lost my thought. That's a crazy thing with Tom Gann. Once in a while, he gets off into the weeds. But no, is that our ego? Talking about the ego, being still, and the definition of success is where I wanted to go. I took this from Sandy Gallagher. I don't know if you know who she is. She was Bob Proctor's right-hand person. She came in to support Bob to help build his legacy business, and she did that. And Bob passed away here recently.
Yep.
And but I remember being in a workshop with her because I'm a certified consultant with the Proctor Gallagher Institute. My wife as well. Here's the problem, and it could relate to men. Let's move it back to the men. Is we've got the wrong definition of success. It's the thing. It's the beast that we killed and drug home. That is success.
Yeah.
It's part of it. But if we want more, like you were talking about, to get to that place, whatever that looks like in a spiritual realm, or a personal development, a growth area, he says the real success, and this is where men get into trouble with it, is real success is who you become along the way. You can't get to point B if you're not improving the starting point of point A, and that's you. You got to improve yourself and measure your success based how much you've grown, and not measure how far away from the shooting star or the moon, the big object you're chasing. Because if you look back, it'll blow your mind how much you've grown.
Oh, listen.
That's a real definite success. Is look at
Yeah.
that.
I mean, most people go to money right away. Oh, money equates to success, a big house, a big car. You can have all those things. Now, listen, let's talk about this cat that is going to spend a lot of time in jail that had FTX. Okay, the this guy or what Murdoch or what Here's the problem with success. If you don't have your own self in order, it's going to catch up to you sooner or later. Sooner or later, and you might be one in a million that you get by in life, and you just for whatever reason get by, and you never have a problem, and you got all the money in the world. I mean, uh, I'm sure. Now all of a sudden, I like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Elon Musk got all the money in the world. Is he on his like fourth marriage or something like that? And he's got like 8 kids or something. I mean, come on now. You've got to do the work on yourself. And a lot of times that's going to be facing old wounds. You're going to have to touch on some places that might hurt. But if you can do the work and get beyond them, you can be the person that you want to be. And that to me is the ultimate definition of having more, is being able to be the best person that you can be and pass that on to others. Because like we were talking about, your kids are watching, you want to have a healthy marriage. You can't be a jerk and have a healthy marriage, right? So you're going to have to do a little work on yourself. The divorce rate in this country is 51%. Second marriages fail faster. Third marriages fail faster. The statistics are out there. Why is that? Because people don't do the work. They think they're just going to go to the next person and they're going to be a better person as a result. No, you got to look in the mirror. You got to look in the mirror, and then you got to do some work. And that's not easy. And that's why a lot of people end up in the way that they are, is they don't want to do the work. It's too hard. It takes too long. Yeah.
And I'll speak for myself, being, we all have stories. We all had challenges. Yeah. We all have all the things that mold us to where we are when we get I call it an awakening. The biggest thing that I had was looking in the mirror and really looking at Tom Ginn.
Yeah. It's not easy.
No, it's not. But when I got through and was able to recognize it's a two-way mirror that I could see through to who I really was, then life changed. I mean, in a way that I can't explain it. People around me have seen it, but I have changed when I recognize looking in the mirror. But it's a two-way mirror. When we get to that place where we can look at the mirror, we see ourselves, but we can see deeper into us. What is who we really are. And you know what? When we accept we were created perfectly, our spiritual DNA is perfect, why worry from that point on? You're already created.
Well, it's a much better way to live. And, what's interesting is, I went through part of my transition into 2020 and really exploring this idea of what my calling was that Christmas in the late 2019 heading into 2020, I got COVID. And I'll be honest, I thought it was somewhat of a joke. I thought if I got it, I'd get the sniffles and that'd be about it. That thing kicked my butt for about 10 days. I was down and out and really suffered, just this fog. And I remember coming out of it, and I would just remember thinking to myself, wow, the good Lord's got the power to take you out anytime he wants. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And, you see how fast life can change. Just Monday Night Football the other night with that, kid, all of a sudden, I've seen the replay over and over again, and it looked like a simple, easy tackle. There was nothing what I would consider violent about it, having played football and watched football all my life. but yet something went wrong. And that guy almost lost his life. Now, how precious does he feel his life is today, compared to when that hit took place the other night? And that's how fast life can be taken from us. And I think the important part is that we recognize that and we do something about it. And that's why, I don't feel like I've arrived yet. I don't know that I ever will, but I know this. I want to take what I've learned and help other guys, so that I can make that impact. That is my calling in life, is to walk alongside them and help them so that they can live their best life. And to me, that's the most important thing, other than being a good husband, a good father, and a good servant to my God, that I could do.
Yeah. You just said that we don't know when our calling is coming, right? It could be walking out the street and somebody runs a stop sign and puts you out, or it could be a prolonged chronic illness that takes you down that path of realizing that you're not going to be here.
Yeah.
And I just love these types of conversations. That's going back to what you said. I haven't arrived yet. You know what? We'll never arrive because we can't comprehend infinite supply. We
Yeah.
can't comprehend infinite supply. We put our own ceilings on our capabilities. Our belief systems are limited. God has infinite supply of love,
Yeah.
grace, mercy, all the things that we're seeking as we walk this earth. We minimize it. We can't comprehend it. And if we just learn to take that box off the top of our head and let it flow,
Yeah.
because we're in flow. So be grateful that we're here this moment. How we deal with this moment is going to take what happens 10 minutes after we're off this program,
Oh yeah, for sure.
or 10 years down the road, or the message that you're talking about, or maybe something I'm saying, that it lands on a replay somebody 5 years from now.
It's funny. Growing up, I hated math. Couldn't figure it out. I'd always be like, well, okay, so 2 + 2 = 4. So just tell me why. No, you don't need to know why. Just 2 + 2 = 4, right? And so, when I think about how big our God is, how big everything is that he's done, I used to try to figure that out. Like 2 + 2 has got to equal 4. And, I'm going to control my life. I've got my hands on the wheel. I got this. But, when I began to realize that, God is so infinite, he's so big, but yet he's the one that's got the control. There's nothing I can do about it. Mike, can you just loosen up your tension on that wheel a little bit? Things started to take off for me. Is it still a chore for me to do? Yeah, I'm human. But, I think the goal here is just take the tension off a little bit. Just trust that he's got you. And that's the more that I'm talking about. Is it great to have a boat, a bike, a big house, multiple cars? Sure it is. If it's used for good. God wants us to have money. He doesn't want us to love the money. You can do good with money in God's kingdom.
Yes.
It is his money. I'm in his house, and, I didn't want to believe that for a long period of my life. Right? It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. And that's a very selfish way to live. And, it'll mess with your mind. And you can't be in a mind that's right with the universe, in my opinion, if you're not right with your Lord and Savior.
Well, I like to break it down so that we can understand why people are out of sorts, out of balance, stuck, frustrated, angry, depressed, or whatever emotional thing that we go through, that the universe and everything in the universe operates by law. And law is non-man made.
Right.
It's like dropping this pen. That's a law. That's a physical law. It will always work exactly the same way under the same circumstance, exactly the same way. Physics, chemistry, the laws work. Well, if we can recognize that we are energy, and we can relate to the God's energy, and that power, that energy that we communicate operates by law. And the reason people are frustrated, depressed, angry, or whatever is that we've got the laws out of order. When we start getting them in alignment, life flows. Now, is it going to be easy? Is not going to be tragedies in our lives and things out of our control? Yes, but it gives us, when we're in alignment, the spiritual laws, the universal laws, things flow. We deal with things. We respond versus react. And it doesn't change a lot of things in many cases, but it's how we deal with it. You see those people that lose everything and go through tremendous tragedies. How did they get through it? Well, you really look at it and really get deep into how that happened. They were more in alignment.
Yeah.
They may not articulate or recognize, but I call that an unconscious competent, But when you get conscious of it and recognize, why am I feeling anxious now? There's a spiritual law. There's a behavior law that's kicking in, and it will always do the same thing. But when you learn that the law works and you can move it, it's not man-made. That's the key. I think that's one of the things Bob Proctor says. A true law is not man-made. And if you want personal development, if it isn't tied to something bigger than you, it won't work long term.
Yeah.
And that stuck to me years ago when I was being coached with Bob.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found, I met a woman and she taught me this whole science behind, there's an organization called Heart Math, and really stopping, and control, really working on your breathing and pausing. And frankly, I like to describe it that simply because, I've experienced, like a lot of guys, some anger issues over the years. I mean, I can blow my stack fairly easily. And what I didn't have a means to do, like a lot of people, was to compensate and say, stop, just stop right now. And it could be as simple as giving yourself 5 to 10 seconds, if that's all you got. But in that moment, if you can stop and control your breathing, you can pause long enough to potentially change the outcome of an entire situation that could cost you your life, your marriage, your, whatever rabbit hole you want to go down. And so I'm a big believer in trying to pause. Have I mastered it? No. Am I better than I used to be? Yes. Because I have awareness. And I think that much of the time, whether you think you can master something or not, just having that awareness puts you a step ahead of where you were. And once you have that awareness, you can work towards mastery. But you got to have that awareness. And I'm a big believer in just pausing before you react, because listen, I'm like a lot of people. I've damaged relationships, because I didn't give myself time to pause and I reacted. And most of the time that reaction was wrong.
Yeah. That sort of leads you said, take a breath, step back. There's a lot of, people say breathing, and there's science and there's lots of things, what it does, but you got to focus on the breathing, because you can only hold one thought at a time. So if you have to think about a breathing process, you can't think about the problem that you're about ready to create.
But it's practice. It really is practice. Yeah. I mean, so, when I think about it, I mean, I could be sitting here on a podcast. I mean, just us talking about it made me go in and give myself a few moments to work on my breathing. And when that happens, I feel more refreshed instantly. I slow down a little bit. And, even I've had to be told this recently. Sometimes you have to slow down in order to speed up. And, my funny story behind that is I had a golf pro at our club that we were at in South Carolina. And I walked into the pro shop one day and he said to me, "Mike, did you just see how fast you walked in here from the parking lot?" And I'm like, "What? What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Did you see how fast you walked in here from the parking lot?" I'm like, "No, I really didn't." His whole point was, when you walk in here like a bolt of lightning, you're going to take that out to the course with you. And it helped me change my whole process of even going to the golf course that started at my house. I would, have a cadence to walk down and stretch out, and then stretch out, and then walking to the car, and then walking slowly to the golf course, and then to the range. And then we had a process for that. Why? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, right? I'm not a professional golfer, but what it allowed me to do was get in the right mindset so that I could just enjoy everything that's around me. People always ask me, "Mike, why do you love golf? You just go chase a little white ball around." Well, have you been outside? Have you noticed God's beauty? Listen, honestly, some of the golf courses in this country are some of the most amazing places I've ever been in my life. Go out to Colorado. You could be surrounded by the mountains. It's incredible beauty. And that's God's beauty. And that's part of the reason why I love the game of golf. It's because I love the competition, but it allows me to be out and explore God's beauty. And so, and that process for me began by just slowing down.
Mike, you said something, we'll just sort of back up from the last thing you said. Is in athletes, they call it a zone.
Yep.
And that zone is that slowing down. See, in a baseball player, they see that 105-mile-an-hour fastball actually coming to, they can actually see, they could probably count
right
threads as that
he just throw me a curveball, he threw me a slider. They know.
Yeah. Or athlete is respond that they see it in slow motion, and that's called a zone. They know how to slow themselves down because the world operates in fast. I mean, it loves speed. The universe loves speed. But when you started that whole process of slowing down and getting into the zone, we can do that in every situation.
Yeah, exactly.
We know we go into a relationship and oh God, I screwed up with the checkbook. I spent more money than I should have. I'm going to have that conversation with the wife this weekend. Right. So slow down. You can approach that situation.
We live in a culture that wants us to speed up. Many times we embrace it, speeding up. One of the things that drives me bananas is, especially with youth nowadays. Now, I've always been involved in sports, so I really see it in sports.
Yeah.
I used to play 16 baseball games in a season and I was done. Now, granted, I grew up in Iowa. The season was short. I get that. But now, you got travel this, travel that. I mean, some of these kids, I know kids that play well over 100 baseball games, maybe a couple hundred in their quote unquote season. And, and you see this on many of these shows on television, whether it's America's Got Talent or whatever, these young children will come out on stage and they have incredible talent, but everybody gravitates to, and I just kind of feel like we live in a culture where there's this whole, like, we want our children to be adults. Like, we're trying to speed up their growth cycle. We're not allowing them to be children. And I feel like it permeates I like to call it our fast food culture. It's like we got used to going to McDonald's and we want it in every area of our life, including our relationship with Christ, right? Which I call our fast food Jesus. And what you and I are talking about is the fact that those laws don't work that way. There is some level of faith required, some some level of practice but I don't, our culture is trying to speed everything up. And I'm coming to the conclusion that the people that know how to slow that down are the real winners.
Yeah. Can I go back to what you started? I'm
You're
the
starting to
creator.
make me feel smart. I don't.
I tell you what, you and I we could just talk for, the first time I met, we got into a 15-minute calendared appointment. An hour later, we were done. I just want to draw this picture. I think pictures, this is how I operate, is sometimes we've got to slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
And when you said that, this is what came to my mind. It's like in that Corvette. You get in the Corvette, you start it up, that big rumbling, you get excited, it got horsepower, and you put your foot on the gas, and the thing starts fishtailing. And it's fishtailing, and it's almost going out of control. And if you don't know how to drive it, you're going to crash.
Yeah.
So and then you said you got to slow down to be able to go fast. So you slow down, the car gets back in an alignment straight down the road, and then you can gradually increase the speed and you can get there. But most people are always fishtailing and swerving and almost out of control and crashing and recorrecting.
Yeah.
Instead of just back off the gas a little, take that breath. And I love what Mel Robbins does, the 5-second rule. That's how you sort of breathing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Recoup yourself, and then you're going to respond accordingly. But
well,
when you
tough.
said that,
I love speed. Listen, one of my favorite things in the world is the Indianapolis 500. I love Indy race cars. I've been passionate about it since I was a kid. My dad took us to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I love it. I love those cars. I love race day. I just absolutely love it. And my wife, one year for my birthday, bought me a Indy racing experience. And so we got to go to Charlotte Motor Speedway and be in one of it's just like the Richard Petty driving school. And really what their whole goal is to get you up over 150 miles an hour on the track. And I thought it was pretty cool till we hopped in our driver's suits and they took us in the room and they said, here are the rules. And it was pretty much in that moment where I went, what am I about to do? And you feel your heart start to pick up, right? And then they take you out to the track. And, when it came my time, you get the helmet on and they talk you around the track. So they put you, you got earbuds in but I remember they're strapping me in the car on pit lane and I'm looking straight down the track and all I can see is the wall outside turn 4. And I just remember sitting in that car horrified going, wow, there's walls out there. And then here's the real kicker, Thomas. They have a 2-seater that they do at the same time simultaneously while you're on the track. And the 2-seater, the 2-seater has a professional driver in it. And that car will go about 180 miles an hour. And if you go outside those lines that they've marked, the dots on the track, if you go outside those lines, not only could you hit the wall, you could take that guy out. Now, how about that? I did get up to 158 miles an hour, and it's one of and I'd love to do it again. It was really one of the biggest thrills of my life. And, but there again, the funny thing about that was my son, videoed the thing. I literally thought I was embarrassed. I did not want to get out of the car because there's no speedometers in the car, right? So you don't know how fast you're going. It felt like I was going about 50 miles an hour, and I'm not kidding you. And I seriously thought I was going to get out of the car and everybody was going to be standing around laughing at me. And I did top out at 158. But what's incredible about that experience is I was going fast, but it felt like I was going slow.
Yeah, because you had nothing to reference. Conditioning, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The speedometer, that's a conditioning. So, I'm going 55, I'm going over. Or if you would have saw 100, 110, 120, 130, your you had now
You would
I'm
have
going,
freaked out. I probably would have freaked out. Right.
right.
And, yeah. So
Nothing to reference. Nothing to reference. That's a great story. Thanks much. We've been an hour. We've been an hour, my friend. So um, I would like to do, you've got a podcast called True Man. That's that
yeah,
blue sign over your shoulder there. You want to let people know about your program. I know you're going to be writing a book. We're going to have
yeah.
you back on again to, let people know specifically. How can people um, get a hold of you? Or,
Well, you can always send me an email at mike@truemanlifecoaching.com.
okay.
And you can, I've got two websites now. Here's the trick here. So, you can always go out to my website, truemanlifecoaching.com, and that'll connect you with my podcast is on there. And I'm on all the major podcast channels. Yeah. So I'm in the process of, finalizing, my first book, which I'm excited about because listen, I can't sit for more than 5 minutes. So to write a book is to some degree excruciatingly painful. But yeah, the name of the first book is going to be True Man, True Ways, a roadmap of discovery to the masculine heart. And we've already got the author page up. So if you go out to the author page, Mike Van Pelt author.com, the book's on pre-sale. I would suggest to you it'll probably be out if everything goes according to plan by the end of July, August 1st timeframe is my goal. So, but we've got the website up and running for pre-sale right now. So I'm excited about that. And honestly, I'm going to be in a compilation book, the art of geez, all of a sudden I went brain dead. But I get that book that I was featured in is going to be out this week, as a matter of fact, on January 11th. So yeah, a lot of book stuff going on, Thomas. It's crazy.
Well, I tell you what, I'm doing this for a reason. Is that back in just around Christmas time, my wife were talking, and we're talking about my growth and my story and things that she didn't even know about me. We had one of those. He says, you should write a book. And I've been contemplating writing a book, but what is Tom's story going to be about? How can I influence other than maybe a journal for my grandkids to read, right? I mean, that's about the most I thought to it. But she instilled in me that what you've experienced and where you've come to today is worthwhile for people to know. So I got to give credit. So I'm going to be writing a book. The main title, I don't know what it is, but it's going to be called Gestation.
Ooh,
Gestation.
that's intriguing.
Yes, it is. So that the oak tree takes the time to grow. We take time to grow. We got slow down, like you said.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Thomas. I've come to believe this out of my own experiences. And a year ago this time, if you'd have said, Mike, you're going to write a book, I'd be like, you're crazy. We all have a story in us.
Yeah.
And, that story is actually bigger than just our family. That it's a legacy to our families and the people that we know for sure. But we all have a story in us, and that story can affect the lives of hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of people, depending on, what that story is and how it gets out there. But I think these stories are so critically important. And it's one of the reasons why, I do my podcast is, I want those stories to be heard. They're motivational. They inspire people to action. And, we've got an opportunity to save lives, change lives, impact lives by getting those messages out there. And that's why a book is so important. So I just want to encourage you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's, I put it out there because that's called accountability. What people are going to ask me, how's that book writing going? So I put a little pressure on myself. I work better under pressure.
That's why I got the website up and running, Thomas, because I needed that level of accountability. In fact, I mentioned it on something I was on earlier today, and I sold the book. And I thought, Mike, you got to get focused on that.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. The True Man podcast, True Man brand is not my own. That belongs to Jesus Christ. That's what the True Man is. He's the ultimate role model. I just happen to be the primary caretaker of that brand while I'm walking around on this face of earth. And I'm happy and ecstatic to, to have the True Man brand and to share it with people.
Well, it's an honor to Mike to have you on as a guest. To how we've met through this whole process of, you know, connecting with streaming and this
Yeah.
great product that I'm endorsing and called Be Connected. I encourage people to check it out. Won't get into that, but you know how this platform has brought us together. I look forward to the opportunity to get to know you even more and deeper, and how can we serve each other and serve the world in a different way. So I just want to say thank you, Mike,
Absolutely.
for being a guest on G-Force. G is for gratitude. It changes everything, changes our perspective of whatever's happening in our lives. So in closing, anything else you'd like to share before we?
Oh, just thanks for having me on. I enjoyed our conversation, and I'm just honored that I have opportunities to promote the True Man brand and share it with people. And so thanks for having me on, Thomas. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm going to do my little rollout and we'll be done. Let's figure out where all these little buttons are.
Where's the button?